Hey guys, let's do a read aloud. I'll play a quick song and then we'll get going. All right. Let's see where we were. She has a gift, Newell agreed. We're sorry, Kendra said. We're a little lost. Doran waved a hand. Don't worry. We just like to bless her. If you spoiled our wine, that would be another story. Still, Newell said, a guy has to eat, and free stew is free stew. We'll try to find a way to repay you, Kendra said. So will we, Newell said. You don't happen to have any batteries, Doran asked. Batteries? Seth asked, wrinkling his nose. Size C, Newell clarified. Kendra folded her arms. Why do you want batteries? They're shiny, Newell said, nudging Doran with an elbow. We worship them, Doran said, nodding sagely. They seem like little gods to us. The kids stared at the goatman in disbelief, unsure how to continue the conversation. They were obviously lying. Okay, Newell said, we have a portable television. Don't tell Stan. We have a mountain of batteries, but we ran out. Our supplier is no longer employed here. We could work out an arrangement, Newell spread his hand diplomatically. Some batteries to repent for disrupting our stew siphoning. Hold on, I have to go tell the rats to be quiet. Hey guys, you gotta wait till I'm done with Read Aloud. I know, I'm sorry. Coco just gave me a really mean look. Then we can trade for more. Gold, booze, you name it. Doran lowered his voice slightly. Of course, we would need to keep our arrangement private. Stan doesn't like us watching the tube, said Newell. You know our grandpa? Seth asked. Who doesn't? Newell said. You haven't seen him lately, Kendra asked. Sure, just last week, Doran said. I mean, since last night. No, why? Newell said. Haven't you heard? Seth asked. The satyrs shrugged at each other. What's the news? Newell asked. Our grandpa was kidnapped last night. Kendra said your grandfather is a kid? Newell said. They mean he was abducted, Doran clarified. Kendra nodded. Creatures got into the house and took him and our housekeeper. Not Dale, Doran asked. We don't think so, said Dale. Or said Seth. Newell shook his head. Poor Dale. Never been very popular. Lousy sense of humor. Doran agreed. Too quiet. You guys don't know who might have taken them, Kendra asked. On Midsummer Eve, Newell said, tossing up his hands. Anybody. Your guess would be better than mine. Could you help us find him? Seth asked. The satyr shared an uneasy glance. Yeah. Ouch. Newell began uncomfortably. This is a bad week for us. Lots of commitments, Doran confirmed, backing away. You know, now that I thought of it, Newell said, we may have needed a new rigging on the chimney anyhow. How about we go our separate ways and call it even? Don't take anything we said to heart, Doran said. We're just being satirical. Seth stepped forward. Do you know something you aren't telling us? It isn't that, Newell said, continuing his slow retreat. It's just Midsummer's Day. We're booked. Thanks for helping us get away from the ogress, Kendra said. Our pleasure, Newell replied. All part of the package, Doran added. Could you guys at least point us toward home? Seth asked. The satyr stopped retreating. Doran extended an arm. There's a path over there. When you reach it, go right, Newell said. That will get you started in the right direction. Give our best to Stan when he turns up. The satyrs hastily turned and dashed off into the trees. Chapter 12, Inside the Barn. Kendra and Seth located the path just as the satyrs had instructed, and soon re-encountered the nickel-sized holes that served as a perfect trail of breadcrumbs toward the house. Those goat guys were idiots, Seth said. They did save us from the ogress, Kendra reminded him. They could have helped us rescue Grandpa, but they blew us off. He wore a scowl as they continued along the path. As they neared the yard, they heard the inhuman groan again, the same sound they had heard while exiting the basement, only louder than ever. They halted. The perplexing sound was coming from up ahead, a long, plaintive moan comparable to a blast from a foghorn. Seth dug some of the remaining salt out of his pocket and rushed ahead. With their quickened pace, they were soon back at the edge of the yard. Everything appeared normal. They saw no hulking behemoth capable of the enormous sound they had heard. You know, that salt didn't do much to the satyr, Kendra whispered. It probably only burns the bad creatures, he replied. I think the ogre lady picked some up. It was all mixed in the dirt by then. You saw it torch those guys last night. They waited, hesitant to enter the yard. Now what? Kendra asked. The mighty groan resounded across the yard, nearer and louder. The shingles on the barn rattled. It's coming from the barn, Seth said. We never looked there, Kendra said. I didn't think about it. The monstrous groan blared a third time. The barn shuddered. The birds flew up from the eaves. You think something took Grandpa and Lena to the barn, Kendra said. Sounds like it's still there. Grandpa told us never to enter the barn. I think I'm already grounded, Seth said. No, I mean, what if it keeps ferocious creatures in there? What if he keeps ferocious creatures in there? It might have nothing to do with his disappearance. It's our best chance. Where else are we going to look? We have no other clues. The tracks were a dead end. At least we should try to get a peek inside. Seth started for the barn with Kendra following reluctantly behind. The towering structure rose a good 5 stories tall, topped by a weather vane in the shape of a bull. Kendra had never studied it for entrances until now. She noted the obvious set of large double doors in the front, along with some smaller access doors along the side. The barn creaked and then shaking as if there were an earthquake. The sound of timber splitting filled the air, followed by another mournful moan. Seth glanced back at Kendra. Something huge was in there. A few moments later, the barn grew still. Chains and a heavy padlock bound the double doors in front, so Seth moved around the side of the building, quietly trying the smaller doors. They were all locked. The barn had several windows, but the lowest were 3 stories off the ground. They stealthily circled the entire building, finding no doors unlocked. There weren't even any cracks or peepholes. Grandpa sealed this place up tight, Kendra whispered. We might have to make some noise to get inside, Seth said. He started circling the building again. I'm not sure that would be smart. I'll wait until the barn starts shaking again, Seth said. Down in front of the small door, little more than 3 feet high, minutes passed. Think it knows we're waiting? Kendra asked. You're just bad luck. Stop saying that. A fairy gilded over near them. Seth tried to shoo it away. Get out of here. The fairy effortlessly dodged his shooing motions. The more vigorously he waved her away, the closer she came. Stop it. You're just egging her on, Kendra said. I'm sick of fairies. Then ignore her and maybe she'll leave. He stopped paying attention to the fairy. She came up right behind his head. When the proximity earned no reaction, the fairy landed on his head. Seth slapped at her, missing as she wove around his intended blows. Just when he jumped to his feet to chase her, the booming groan came again and the little door trembled. Seth plopped back down and started ramming the door with both feet. The moaning muffled most of the impact's noise. On the 5th kick, the edge of the little door split and swung open. Seth rolled away from the opening and Kendra stepped aside as well, digging in his pockets. Seth withdrew the remnants of his salt. Want some, he mouthed. Kendra accepted some salt. A second or two later, the deafening moaning ceased. Seth gestured for Kendra to wait. He crept through the small door. Kendra waited, squeezing the salt in her palm. Seth reappeared in the opening wearing an inscrutable expression. You have to see this, he said. What? Don't worry. Come look. Kendra ducked through the little doorway. The enormous barn contained just one cavernous room with a few closets around the perimeter. The entire room was dominated by a single gigantic cow. We better stop there. We'll read more about the single gigantic cow on Monday.